Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Nondumi Sonjangase. For those of you who are new to the channel, please subscribe and also hit the notification bell so that you get notified when there's new content out. Please also note that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you require financial advice, please consult with a person who is registered with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. And because the video that I'm doing today relates to a legal issue, please consult with a lawyer if you do need legal advice, right? So I decided, because the last video related to death benefits, let me just continue on that path and let's talk about what happens if you die without a will. I am hoping that this video scares you a little bit so that you go and have a will drafted, right? So it's very important to have a will, but I think, we usually think, because maybe I don't have many assets, but because they think, it's not paid off, it belongs to the bank and it's not mine. If you die, your credit life insurance pays off that car, and then it's an asset in your estate, right? Maybe you got a house and it's R1 million, and you've been paying it off, or you've been paying towards, the house for a year, and you're like, it belongs to the bank, because haters like to say that. But if you pass away, that becomes an asset in your estate. So because credit life generally settles that, and that R1 million is going to be in your estate, then you have R1 million in your estate. What's going to happen to that R1 million? So you need to actually ensure that you do have a will, so that your assets, even assets that might only be assets at the end, would say, okay, this is what's going to happen to my assets, right? So I'll make examples, in the way I'm trying to explain this, because what happens is that if you don't have a will, your estate will be divided in terms of the Interstate Succession Act. So it tells you, it's okay, in such a scenario, this is what happens to the assets. In such a scenario, this is what happens to the assets. So in an instance where it says, this is what needs to happen, and maybe you no longer have a good relationship, or you never had a relationship with this person, maybe your father, for example, or your mother, you never had a relationship with them, and you really don't want them to share in your estate, but because the act says that, that person needs to share in your estate, it's going to have to happen like that. So that's why it's important for you to get a will, right? So in an instance where you have a spouse and no children, then your spouse will actually receive your assets. So you marry in comes to property, they receive their 50%, and the 50% that belongs to you will go to them, right? And also in an instance where maybe, let's say, you don't have a spouse, but you have 2 children or 1 child, that money will go, or those assets in your estate will go to the child. And in an instance now where you have both children and a spouse, let's say you marry, I'm going to use marriage in community of property. You married in community of property to your lovely wife or your lovely husband, and you pass away. And let's say you have 3 children. So what happens is that the spouse is going to receive their 50%, right? And then the 50% that is supposed to go to you will be shared still between the 3 children and the spouse. So the spouse receives something called a child share. So they're they treat the spouse like a child, but the spouse can never receive, or can't receive, anything less than 250,000. So in an instance where you have, let me use an easy example, because being a lawyer, I'm mathematically challenged, so I might not be very good with very serious examples here. So in an instance where it's you've got your 3 children and your spouse also has to share on your 50%, and with R1 million, they all get 250,000 rands, right? And maybe now let me make an example again of an instance where you only have 350,000 rands in your 50%. She's received her 50%, and now there is 350 rands remaining. I said that a spouse can never receive anything less than 250,000. It means with this 250,000, this 350,000 that's there, the spouse is going to take their 250,000, and the 100,000 that's left is going to go to the child. So the spouse can never receive anything less than 250,000. But if there's maybe 3 children and the spouse again, but there's 2 million, then she will receive her 500,000. So she's treated like a child, but in an instance where there's not enough money, they must receive their 250,000, and whatever remains will be divided between the children. Also, then we look at a scenario where you don't have a spouse, you don't have children, but you have parents. Then it goes up. Your parents are the ones that now receive the money. So your 50% will go to your mother, 50% will go to your father. That's why, I mentioned earlier that if you never had a relationship with your father, it still has to go to your father. So if you have a will, you can say, no, all my money must go to my mother, right? And also with the example that I made earlier, you find that you only have a spouse and you married in community of property, they get their 50%, but maybe let's say you're separated. They get their 50%, and also they have to get a child's share if you have children. Now it's eating into the money that's supposed to be going to your children, and maybe he's not even, or she's not even taking care of these children, right? Or maybe to spouse and they receive everything. So it becomes really a very painful situation where now a person you no longer had a relationship with receives money because you decided, no, I'm not going to draft a will, or I'm not going to have a will drafted, which is something so simple and easy, right? So then we said if there's parents, it goes up to the parents. And if you have one parent, but then there's siblings, it will go to, the 50% will go to the mother, and then the other 50% will go to your father's children, right? There are some of your siblings that uzala ubaba wakho noma wakho, so uzothola still from the father's side, right? And in an instance where both the parents are no longer there, then it means the money has to go to the siblings now. So in an instance where you have a sibling who uzala uma wakho uphinde uzale ubaba wakho, then it means they're going to receive a share from the mother's portion, a share from the father's portion. And where you have half sisters or half brothers where you only related to them because of your mother, then they will only receive a share from your mother's portion, right? So it goes like that. And then in an instance where there's no spouse, there's no children, there's no siblings, there's no parents, then in that instance, they look at the closest relative. So in that family tree, who is the closest, and then it gets divided like that. So I thought it was very important for us to talk about this so that you understand that you might end up having your money going to people you don't even want receiving anything from you. So it's important that you go and draft this will, and I hope this video has encouraged you to actually go out there and get a will. And I hope that you have a very lovely day and go and get that will. Bye-bye.